throwing stone. The village of Black Hollow had a tradition that no one dared to speak of openly. Every autumn, when the air turned cold and the leaves carpeted the ground in fiery shades, the villagers would gather in the central clearing to perform the throwing stone ritual. To outsiders, Black Hollow seemed like any other quaint, isolated settlement. But those who lingered long enough learned the horrifying truth. Eliza, a young traveler, had no idea what she was walking into when she decided to spend the night there. Her hiking trip had taken longer than expected, and as dusk fell, she found herself on the outskirts of Black Hollow. The village looked idyllic in the orange glow of the setting sun, with its cobblestone streets and thatched roof cottages. She knocked on the door of a modest house, hoping for a place to stay. An elderly woman named Martha answered, her face pale and eyes filled with a strange mixture of fear and pity. "You shouldn't be here," Martha whispered. "I just need a place for the night." Eliza pleaded. Martha hesitated, but eventually let her in. As they sat by the fire, Eliza noticed how tense the old woman was, her hands trembling as she poured tea. "You must leave by dawn," Martha finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why?" Eliza asked, curious but unnerved. Martha looked at her with hollow eyes. "The stones choose, and when they choose, no one escapes." Before Eliza could ask what that meant, a loud bell rang out from the center of the village. Martha froze, her face draining of color. "It's time," she muttered. "Stay here. Don't leave this house no matter what you hear." But Eliza's curiosity got the better of her. As soon as Martha disappeared into the night, Eliza slipped out the door, following the faint sound of the bell. In the village square, dozens of people had gathered around a large stone circle. At the center stood a massive pile of smooth black stones, each one glistening as if freshly polished. The villagers formed a tight ring around the stones, their faces grim and emotionless. A man stepped forward holding a scroll. He was tall and gaunt, with a deep scar running down his cheek. His voice boomed across the clearing as he read names from the scroll. Eliza Thompson. The blood drained from Eliza's face. Her heart pounded as every head turned toward her. She hadn't told anyone her name. "You've been chosen," the man said, his eyes locking onto hers. I don't understand," Eliza stammered. The villagers parted, leaving a clear path to the stone pile. "Take a stone," the man commanded. Eliza hesitated, but the villagers began to chant, their voices low and rhythmic. "Take the stone, take the stone." Something about their unified voices sent chills down her spine. Against her better judgment, she stepped forward and picked up one of the stones. It was heavier than it looked, and an unnatural warmth seeped through her fingers. "Throw the stone," the man said. Eliza looked around, confused. "Throw it where?" "Throw it at him." The crowd parted further, revealing a man tied to a wooden post at the edge of the clearing. His clothes were torn, and his face was bruised and bloodied. He looked at Eliza with pleading eyes. "I didn't do anything," the man cried out. "Please, I have a family." Eliza's hands trembled. "What is this? I'm not going to hurt him." The crowd's chant grew louder, more insistent. "Throw the stone! Throw the stone!" Eliza dropped the stone and stepped back. "No, this is insane." But the moment the stone hit the ground, something changed. The air grew heavy, and the villagers' eyes turned dark, their pupils expanding until they were nothing but black voids. The man at the center of the clearing smiled, a twisted grin that didn't belong on a human face. "You've broken the pact," he said, his voice unnaturally deep. The ground beneath the stone pile began to shake. The stones rattled, then levitated into the air, hovering like a swarm of angry bees. One by one, they turned toward Eliza. Eliza ran, her heart pounding as the stones shot toward her like bullets. She ducked and weaved through the trees, the stones crashing into trunks and branches around her. She didn't know where she was going, she just needed to escape. Behind her, the chanting continued, louder and more distorted. The villagers' voices echoed through the forest, mingling with the sound of the stones whizzing past her. Eliza tripped over a root and fell hard onto the forest floor. Before she could get up, one of the stones struck her shoulder, sending a jolt of pain through her body. Another grazed her leg, leaving a deep gash. She screamed, crawling forward as more stones rained down around her. Finally, she spotted a small cave ahead and scrambled inside, pressing herself against the cold, damp wall. For a moment there was silence. She held her breath, her heart racing. Then she heard it, a low, guttural growl coming from the darkness deeper in the cave. She turned, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. What she saw made her blood run cold. At the back of the cave was a massive figure, hunched and humanoid but wrong in every way. Its skin was as black as the stones, its eyes glowing red like embers. It crawled toward her on all fours, its elongated fingers scraping the stone floor. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed, its voice echoing inside her mind. Eliza backed away, but the creature moved faster, its grin widening to reveal rows of jagged teeth. Outside, the villagers gathered at the edge of the forest, their black eyes glowing in the darkness. The man with the scar held up another stone, this one larger than the rest. He muttered something under his breath, and the stone began to pulse with an eerie red light. Inside the cave, the creature lunged at Eliza just as the glowing stone shot through the trees like a meteor. It struck the cave entrance, shattering into a blinding explosion of light and sound. When the light faded, the cave was empty. The creature was gone, so was Eliza. Back in the village, the stones returned to their pile, stacking themselves neatly as if nothing had happened. The villagers' eyes returned to normal, and they dispersed without a word. Martha stood at the edge of the clearing, her face etched with sorrow. She knew what would happen next. By dawn, a new stone would appear at the top of the pile, engraved with Eliza's name. The ritual would continue. The stones always chose, and they never forgave.